Hi everyone, coming to you from my kitchen table again. Today I want to talk about two common mistakes that are made with voice and that unfortunately are often even taught. Now I'll speak a bit about potentially why they're taught or why people think they are taught at the end of this video. But to start, I want to just speak about these mistakes and why they are detrimental to the voice and why they don't actually work. Although they might appear to have some immediate benefits on the outset, you might think that you have a bit more volume, your voice projects more, there is more voice there. But in the long run, it's going to backfire. Both of these techniques will backfire. Okay, they will, in the long term, very much spoil your vocal timbre, which is the natural beauty and color of your voice that is unique to you. They will destroy that, and I'll tell you why. They will also impede the natural development of volume. If you use these techniques, you'll only be able to develop volume to a certain degree, and then afterwards it will sound forced and ugly, and you won't be able to increase volume. And they also stop you expanding your vocal range. And these are sort of the typical ones that obviously impact people who are in vocal training, wanting to sing, but also people who are wanting to have some skills to project their voice for public speaking. But as you know, if you've been following me, both of these are not my thing, although I come from a background of operatic singing. But what I teach is neuro-sensory voice work, which rests on a very different outlook and set of principles. In neurosensory voice work, we see the voice as the mirror of your nervous system. So we recognize the inherent complexity that is in the nervous system and how that impacts the voice. And this is a practice we do to become more deeply attuned to ourselves, to become more fully embodied, and to heal from trauma. So, but these issues I will address because I get students again and again coming with these ideas that are wrong. And the first one is that you've got to stick your belly out when you sing or to make sound. So people have the idea, okay, the air goes in, the belly goes out. It's not like that. That is really oversimplistic. Obviously, the idea behind that is to access the diaphragm, diaphragmatic breathing that does have a sort of expansion, which can feel, to some people, it can feel as though the belly is relaxing a bit and perhaps dropping a bit because of it. But this is not the same as sticking your belly out. And it's really important to make that distinction. So whether you've heard this from a teacher or whether you've misunderstood, doesn't matter whether the misconception comes from, but avoid at all costs sticking your belly out. And the reason is the following. As the voice is basically a complex interplay of multiple body systems, it is mainly involuntary, and it is governed by the involuntary part of our nervous system. So if you have a breathing pattern that is bad, you can't voluntarily correct it unless you've done a lot of work and accessed the trauma that's stored there or the tension that is stored there. chronically stored there, let me say, and released it, which will then open a natural, deep, full and open breath. So when people teach to push your stomach out, what you essentially are doing is you're using your ability to affect your musculature in such a way to push your stomach out. So you're accessing the part of your diaphragm, of your tummy, that you can voluntarily control. But that has nothing to do with your voice. And you will, by doing that, start building and cultivating muscles that have nothing to do with vocal production. And these muscles, although they at the outset might appear to give your voice a bit more body and volume, very soon down the line, they will be the muscles that are impeding your vocal development, because they will be getting in the way, because you will have trained the wrong muscles that will be then in the way of the correct vocal mechanisms from kicking in, which can even be completely opposite. Okay, so trying to control your voice by pushing out your abdominal muscles does not function, okay? The second mistake that, again, I hear from students is to think of expanding their rib cage. And again here, if we sort of unpick that, perhaps it even came from a well-meaning voice teacher who, you know, had a good natural ability and was just trying to convey something that naturally can happen. But teaching people to expand their ribs is a different thing altogether, because again, you're accessing muscles that you can control from a voluntary level that have nothing to do with the reflexes that are governed by the nervous system that actually, how should I say, impact or govern your voice. Okay, so again, if you're holding your rib cage open, you are basically flexing muscles, like as if you go to a gym, that are building muscle tissue that you will not need for singing or for an expanded or vocal development in general. The mistake or the misconception often arises from looking at the body and not discerning well enough with language. So if we do look at somebody who breathes very well and deep and has a full and open breath, you know, a full diaphragmatic breath that really goes right into the pelvis and all the way through also the clavicular belt, then we will see there is, because the diaphragm drops and this dome-shaped muscle, you know, drops, and as it drops, it expands a bit, and in that, the muscles of the ribs kind of go out slightly. But this is not the same, again, I repeat, not the same as training those muscles with your will, because then you're accessing different muscles. It's really important to discern this. And again, down the line, this will get in the way of real vocal development. So, to perhaps say why I'm actually talking about this, is because in neurosensory voice work, we really learn to listen to our nervous system. And we start to trust our body more and more and allow the sort of physical impulses to take the lead. And that is where healing from trauma that is stored in the body, in your physical tissues, can happen and frequently happens. And with that goes a big development, like mentally, psychologically, and just on a whole character level, okay? You relax, your brain clears up, you see things more clearly, and you have more elasticity. And also vocally, you have a different voice. So these things are extremely connected. But if you start to work like by pushing your belly out or trying to expand your ribs artificially, what you will be doing is you will be compounding tension. And that means compounding tension means building tension on already existing tension. And that just leads to an increase of tension. And in 99.9% of the cases, that tension is tension that is in the wrong place and which will impede the proper tension taking over, the proper vocal mechanisms taking over. But I want to say one thing about this, is that not all singing teachers are bad, and often people who actually teach voice, you know, on an outcome focused level, whether it's training actors or training singers, and often the people who have very natural, fantastic voices themselves haven't actually needed to learn how to deal with restriction and bad breathing patterns. So these people won't have the tools or the ability to help you with that, as they don't know it. And they might just in a simplistic way say, yeah, just, you know, support your belly, let the belly out and support you, and that'll do the trick. Well, the thing is, for them, it might have worked because they might have a very different physical constitution. And we need to here look at what is the perception and the interpretation into language. So for them, it might have felt like just supporting and sticking the belly out a bit and relaxing it and supporting. But that language isn't differentiated enough for people who are actually struggling with chronic tension in the diaphragm and in these places, okay? So there can be, I'm not saying all singing teachers are bad, but some are not the best at actually conveying and helping students to work with the breath in a constructive way. Yeah, so obviously in neuro-sensory voice work, our approach is different. It's about attuning to our nervous system and listening more deeply, and then allowing vocal reflexes and mechanisms to take over and shift energy. So we are not, all the work I do is not focusing on the outcome, and I repeat this again and again. We don't focus on how you sound, what you do, but we are working with the functional mechanisms of the voice in a trauma-informed way, and for the purpose of becoming more fully embodied and expressed. And this does develop your voice, but the primary goal is not vocal development. The primary goal is to heal from trauma and become more fully embodied. That's all for today. Bye for now.